Mr. Ben Overstreet.
He is an IB math teacher at the American School of Madrid.
And he has had a very interesting career path leading to ASM.
Hi everyone, welcome to Beyond Borders episode 3.
We're very excited to have you watching and tuning in today. Our guest speaker on this episode is a very special guest, my math teacher, Mr. Ben Overstreet.
Hello.
Thank you so much for participating today, Mr. Ben.
Yeah, you guys, thanks.
We'll start off. Why don't you tell us a little review on how you got to this position?
Oh boy. Okay, let's see. Well, that story goes way back. Let's see. Maybe I'll start at when I was your age. And I had literally said the words, I want to be an astronaut. I want to go into space. And then through the course of figuring out what I wanted to do with my life at the time, I thought, well, I don't want to do engineering anymore. But I do like math. So I switched my major. I was undecided for a bit, and then I switched to psychology. But throughout the course of my undergrad, I was still taking all those math classes. I still really enjoyed math and all that. And so, and then those math classes just sat there. I didn't know I was going to need them for a long time. You know, I didn't know that I would eventually utilize those as much as I am now. And then went for a master's degree in business psychology. So I wanted to work for big companies and do like statistics and consulting and maybe some research too. Was in a PhD program for a bit as well, and got another master's degree. Why not? And so I had 2 master's degrees, one in like business psychology, one in applied statistics, applied psychology, and and then I was trying to decide, well, what do I want to do? And at the time then, I was engaged and married, and I was thinking, well, what do we want to do, right? So my wife was in natural resources and in aquaculture, marine biology, those kinds of majors, and she had a plan, and my plans kind of aligned with hers to go into the Peace Corps at one point. Yeah. So we said, let's go together. So she kind of waited on me to finish up some credits I needed for my second master's, and then we went into the Peace Corps together. And I served we served in Paraguay, and and we were there for a year and a month, 13 months, and then we said, well, that's, there we decided, hey, maybe we're just educators. It's what we've been doing for the past year. And so we came back, we worked on our teaching certifications in Florida. We were 2 years in Florida, 2 years in Beijing, and now we've been here 4.5 years.
Yeah, well, to start off, like at the beginning, I noticed you said a lot about psychology, like applied psychology, business psychology, and I mean, I feel like psychology is a pretty big part of teaching and educating. So how do you apply those like learnings to how you teach now?
Oh man, that's a great question. So one of the biggest things I studied, and I'm actually an author on, if you go search papers by me, if you just Google my name, Ben Overstreet, you'll see I'm an author on some papers about motivation. Yeah. And specifically regulatory focus. But anyway, it's just about motivation, and like human motivation is a huge part of math in general. And I also did a little research on like metacognition and stuff, and metacognition to me is a huge part of math as well, how you think about how you think. Analyzing your own strategies, looking at yourself and how you think is super important too for math learning. So, and the list goes on. I mean, self-efficacy, how you feel about your ability to do something is much more powerful than your actual ability. Mm-hmm. So for me here as the math teacher, when I was hired, I was kind of hired as the guy who could help in all the lower math classes. That was how I was kind of hired at first, and that's still kind of part of my role, but so when I was hired, that's, that was part of it. And then I think all of those things helped me when I first got here to say, like, this is what those kids are struggling with. Mm-hmm. This idea that they tell themselves that they're bad at math and they get kind of stuck, and then people tell them they're bad at math, but that's okay. And you're like, wait, don't label them that, Mm-hmm. And so kids get kind of like stuck in quicksand, and then they can't get out eventually. So I think for me, I see kids go through those struggles, and I kind of know, I feel like I know what's happening, and cognitively in their brains sometimes. Like I'm like, oh, okay, let me see how I can get them out of this. Let me find an open door for them to get out of, and all that. Because I think it gets you stuck. For me, I loved math growing up. I was good at it, so I don't know. It's hard to. I can't relate in that respect, but I can usually find a way to get creative or try to teach it a different way or something like that. I usually strive to do that. So.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you've been to how many different schools?
We started teaching in Florida, and we had a nice little life by the beach down there. It was nice in Florida, and then that's where we had gotten our first. We were substitutes first, and then we got into our full-time jobs. We taught for 2 years down there. Then we went to China, to Beijing. We were there for 2 years, and now here. So 3 schools total, and almost let's see, 2, 4, it's 8 plus 9 if you count subbing. 10 years if you include Peace Corps. I mean, it's education, but full-time teaching. We're in our 9th year right now. So.
Wow. So when you're teaching in Florida, was that a IB school or AP?
They were all AP. It was the American system and all AP and all that. And it was which AP is not a program like IB. It's a lot different. It's kind of like a la carte classes, and a school can choose to teach however many they want, and they're not really like as cohesive or connected as IB. I mean, maybe that's better for implementation, right? As far as AP goes, and they have their pros and cons, but IB, I think, is overall more well-rounded. It's a program. AP is not a program.
Right.
So IB is a lot more cohesive and a lot more like robust in that way. So,
Yeah, I understand that. I've been my freshman year was at an AP public school in the U.S. And then I transferred to this school, which I went into the IB course, and I can agree with that. It's a lot more of a course than the AP is, because AP you're picking classes, and it's just, to me, it was just like more advanced classes rather than like a whole different type of school. So.
Yeah, exactly. And some classes are actually more advanced than they need to be. I have a very funny story about that. I don't know, can I tell a story? That's like, you guys are a pretty laid back podcast here, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I was teaching AP Calculus, and AP Calculus is kind of hard.
Yeah.
And depending on where you take it in university, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, some university level Calc 1 courses could actually be easier than AP Calculus is for a high school junior or senior. And so a student once told me, they said, I said, man, you're just gonna have to really turn it around and start studying, and he's like, Mr. Overstreet, like, I give up, man. Like, I'm just gonna go to college and take it. It's gonna be easier there anyway. And I started to come up with an argument. I was like, hey, wait. Oh man, he's kind of right. Because there are some universities where you can just get a straightforward calculus class, and it won't be as difficult as you think. So.
I mean, Ms. Ricks likes to say that, I'm not sure if it's exactly right, the terminology, but she says that IB is more width and AP is more depth.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
So you've attended 4 different colleges throughout the south of the U.S., right?
3, yeah.
Oh, 3.
I went to UCF in Central Florida. I went to Angelo State in Texas, and I went to University of Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay. And at each different school, what did you do? You got your master's or?
Yeah, the UCF was undergrad. That's where I started engineering and switched my major. And then I went to Angelo State University, that's in Texas, kind of outside of Austin. It's a few hours from Austin, northwest there, kind of a small town. But I like the small cohort of people that was there, we were a small group. And then, and it was there that I was finishing my first master's, and I was kind of at a crossroads, and I said, well, what do I, like, I was printing out jobs, like job notices, and going to apply for jobs, so because I have a master's degree, I can go work now, of course, and probably make okay money with business psychology degree. And my professor at the time, he convinced me. He said, no, you gotta go for the PhD. You gotta do it. you're going to want this later on down the road. And he wasn't wrong. I still want some kind of doctoral degree in my life. I mean, so I think, but it'll probably be an education, not in what I was studying at the time. And then when I went to university, I was studying something that it wasn't, I don't know, when I went into the PhD program at UGA, I wasn't, all my daily research stuff I was doing, it wasn't my passion. And then being a TA, actually I was a teaching assistant at the time, which would make a little money on the side, and that I was thrilled. I love teaching statistics, so I was kind of teaching. It was a college level statistics class, and then I taught the lab portion. So I had my own lab of students, and I really enjoyed that. So for me, that was what kept me motivated at part of the time in my program, was that, hey, wait, I'm kind of a teacher too. Grad school's a weird time where you're doing everything. You're doing a lot of research, you're teaching, you're maybe in an internship where you're working for somebody too. I was in an internship as well. I was working for UPS in the corporate office, and there was this employee survey that they do for all UPS employees, so 400,000 employees, and I was part of the team of people who collected all that data and analyzed it and broke it down and sent it out to managers and for the CEO meetings and all that. So made pie charts and bar graphs and things wrapping up people's perceptions and all that. So.
And like you said, you liked the little small town feel of Angelo when you were there, and you were born and raised in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
So what influenced you to move into the Peace Corps and go abroad and start moving out after you've been in the U.S. for so long?
Yeah, so I didn't leave the country until when I went in the Peace Corps, and I was 26, and Sarah and I had been together for a couple of years and already had kind of decided to go together, and really that was a big part of it. I kind of always knew that I wanted to do something big, and I think it was during the course of Sarah and I's relationship, we kind of decided, travel was something we both want in our lives, and let's kind of, well, part of it was, I was leaving my PhD program, and I kind of had a go big or go home kind of thing going on, where I said, if I'm going to make a change, I'm going to make a big old change and see what happens. And and when we, got to Paraguay and all that, I really liked the life of, I don't know, whatever I was in Peace Corps. In Peace Corps, you're everything, right? So I highly recommend doing it. It's amazing. And then but most of the time you're an educator, and that's where I landed. For me, that was oh, this is perfect. So.
Well, I mean, there's since we're talking about different industries and stuff, there's usually a misconception that who wants to be a teacher or stuff like that, right? So I noticed that you could have had a bunch of opportunities with what you studied, and I mean you had different jobs. So if someone came up to you and said, "Why are you teaching?" What would you say?
Well, I'd probably give them the long story that I've told here. I guess the short answer would be, I believe, it really starts with my beliefs, right? I believe that education is the answer to everything. Education is the answer to every problem, really. If you sat down and analyzed everything, that seems to have a debate about it, the answer is always going to be education. And that stems from my own childhood stuff, my experience with school, my really good experiences in school, right? Sometimes it was, some of the, the things I'm most proud of are the things that, kind of meant the most to me happened at school. And so, I don't know, for me, it just really, and then, of course, just being an educator, I don't know, it just feels like you're helping the world every day. I really struggled with, if I had to look back and say, why am I not doing what I did before, that boils down to, I just can't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to make companies more money today. That's, is that what I'm here to do? And some people can do that every day, and some people, I don't know, they can just do that, but I can't just focus on money. It has to be something, I don't know,
a bigger drive.
Then a bigger goal, bigger connected to something. For me, that's really what keeps me in education, keeps me an educator. I love teaching. I love being in the classroom right now. If I ever switched and did something like admin or something like that, or something admin level, I would still be an educator. That's probably never going to change. Kind of where I see myself in the world.
You mentioned you've moved each place with your wife. You think that's benefited you, and you could work together with her?
Oh yeah, definitely. We make a great team. We knew that just from being being together, being in Peace Corps together, and then becoming teachers together. Like we just make a good team. Yeah, and then really transitioning in every new place that you go helps kind of strengthen your bonds together. It helps keep you. Helps keep you motivated. You keep your eye on a goal and work towards something and all that. It's definitely been, it's. I mean, we're definitely. I don't know. I'll say we're definitely a good team. Like that's what it does. It just builds your connections together. So.
And you always have somebody to be with you. Like I've always had brothers, and moving to different schools, it's always good to have that person that you can be with. Going to a new place.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's nice to have a little family unit, and now we got a little boy too. So now our family's growing, and we feel like we have, a little family. Even before it's kind of like, oh, we need a little baby here with us. So now we got one. He's very energetic.
His name's Kepler. That's based off of the sciences.
Yeah, Kepler. Around the 1600s. Well, I mean, the short story is Sarah was reading a list of sciencey, mathy baby names, and she landed on Kepler, and it sounded cool. But once we looked into Kepler, I mean, we knew of him through our own math and science studies, just from teaching and stuff. But she said the name. I was like, yes, that's the one. That sounds great. And so they were like, well, let's look him up, make sure he's not a weirdo. And no, he was born in the alive around the 1600s. And at a time when it was like before Galileo, right before like Newton, right before all the big kids said, here's gravity and we revolve around the sun and all that. So people were still, when Kepler was alive, believing in a geocentric world. And he plotted with very low tech methods. He was plotting the orbit of Mars and other planets and stuff in a very low tech way, he did a lot of contributions to math and astronomy and optics. Funny enough, like lenses and things, and I don't know, he's just a really cool guy, but with kind of he had a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit of a interesting side to him that he. Of course, he didn't believe in astrology. He was a scientist, but during the 30 Years' War, there was a bunch of aristocrats or whatever, and they wanted their astrologies read because, and so he would do that for them to make money and stuff. So, even though he didn't believe that, he knew, I guess, enough science mumbo jumbo to kind of read people's things and all that. So, and so he kind of looks like a believer. I don't know what you call that. He kind of looks like one of those. But he wasn't. He kind of had a reason for that. So it's very interesting.
Well, we have a picture that we wanted to ask the backstory to of you that we found, and we'll bring this up. So
that's great.
We're just wondering where this picture was taken, the backstory behind it.
There's a short story that was on a cruise after Peace Corps, and it's just me having fun in Jamaica. With me and Sarah, we just went on a cruise after Peace Corps. Peace Corps, it's kind of like you sometimes you live on very simple meals and things like that. So this was afterwards, and it was just very luxurious to go on a cruise afterwards. I think, was it our first one or second one? I don't remember. But anyway, so that's the story. And I kind of put it there as a joke, because I think that's my profile picture for my ResearchGate thing. And it's kind of, maybe it's a little tongue-in-cheek, because I left the research world, right? I left the PhD program. I think about research a lot, but I don't conduct any now, of course. But I set that as my picture, kind of like hey guys, I'm gonna go have fun and do something different for 10 years. See you later. I think it's actually up on 10 or 11 years now. I believe in. So
A very stylish shirt as well.
thank you. Yeah, I think I specifically went to a thrift store and said, okay, I need just a fun Hawaiian shirt, and bought that one there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all these places you've been to, I'm sure you've seen many cultural differences
Mhm.
and have experienced many different like cultural experiences. So
Mhm.
I guess how's that benefited you? And I mean, because you've been everywhere, Beijing, Jamaica, Madrid, you know.
How have cultural differences benefited me? Yeah, well, it really has helped me with, I don't know, being more, let's see, it's just like aware of things I'm saying or doing that might be weird or offensive to people. At least I hope. I mean, it kind of, I don't know. I mean, like some things you might see are strange, and you think, oh, that's kind of weird, but it's not weird, and it's just something people do. Oh man. I mean, I could start even in Paraguay. Like people would just throw a bag of garbage on the side of the road, and you want to say, you want to be mad at it, right? And I was like much more American than I am now, if that makes any sense. So I feel like Americans are like, hey, I'm gonna tell you off, and I'm gonna tell, that's not what that is. That's something different. It's like a long-term thing, and you just make like a little. So for us, I don't know. For me, that's like, oh, that's just a thing that's happening right now, and you kind of can't judge it. So sometimes you have to like reserve your like judgment or like put it down a bit, and that's hard to do sometimes for certain things, you know, littering or like, I don't know, traffic laws in certain places are just like bananas, right? Like I don't know, but at the same time it's just normal and you adapt to it. I guess it's trying to look at some things with just a fresh set of eyes and go, no, hold on, take a step back. It's not necessarily wrong, just see it from a different perspective. So I feel like that's one way cultures kind of help me there.
And I imagine you've had all these different cultural experiences and been to so many places. Is there any that like has really stick to you and you just made you want to go back after?
That I like for traveling or
both permanent stay and travel.
Let's see. Well, I don't know anybody who knows me, any coworkers or any other students, my former students too. They know when we landed here, this was like our dream job. So like Madrid is like our top place. So it's just funny when we got here, we were walking around, we were like, hey, I'm gonna be here for 20 years, and people were laughing at us, and you know. So here we are, year 5, but I mean, Spain wasn't the top of our list because we learned Spanish in Peace Corps, and so now that we're here, we feel like that's really helped us. You know, that language skills, the language skills that we have helped immensely. You know, if we were anywhere else, we couldn't have done the things we've done. You know, at least not as easily or as quickly as we have. So I feel like we owe a lot to our language skills and getting you know a position here. Is anywhere I really like that we not just travel to? I can say I mean, if I had to pick just a faraway place that not a lot of people know about that is beautiful, you can put a picture of this up too. It's a place called Zhangjiajie. They're based off of these mountains that are karst rock formations, and so they're just like these enormous like pillars of rock, and they exist. Like it's really cool, right? They're just like, wow, these are immense like pillars, like immense towers. And when we went, the hiking was kind of tough. I like fell over and hurt my arm at one point. Like it was kind of crazy, but. Yeah, just give your reaction. Just search. Type that in.
Yeah, I've seen a couple like videos. Wow, it's ridiculous.
Like, look at that.
Yeah.
That exists in the world.
Yeah. And you've been in
Yeah, yeah. In fact, so you have to like take these elevators up.
Like these.
Yeah, you have to take this elevator up to the top, and then you can hike around.
Yeah.
There's like a couple of those, so you have to go like all the way up. It goes up super fast. I think it's the fastest elevator in the world. That's how they.
Well, here they have it, the Avatar and comparison.
Yeah.
It must be so surreal to see all this.
Yeah, that was really amazing. And the way we got there was the worst way to go. It was some overnight train that we took, and it was like a really, really cheap one. And so that should have been our first clue. So, like, do a reasonably priced overnight train, but don't do the really, really cheap one, because that one, it was like a local train. Everybody was sitting in our chairs and like sleeping on top of each other. And it was like this whole crazy thing.
Yeah.
But and we basically just stayed up the whole night. But 100% worth it. It was really cool. So that's something that sticks in my mind when I think back to, try to think of, and Guilin too. If you look up Guilin, do you guys know about Guilin?
I do not know about it.
Guilin. Lin. Yeah, Guilin too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's it there. So it's again, they're called karst rock formations.
Yeah.
They're just all over the south of China. And every town has kind of its own version, or a bunch of towns have their own version of these things, and they're just like phenomenal. Yangshuo as well as kind of.
I mean, you've done a lot of research, so I imagine you've searched up why this happens. No?
Yeah, it's something about, let's see. So the rock is, I don't know, it's made up of a lot of things. Something happens, and sorry, this is like a child explaining it. That's the best I can think. Okay.
Yeah,
rock is made up of like hundreds of different minerals and junk, and something pushes it up, and then water and rain push it down, and what's left are the hard minerals. That's how they are. The softer ones melt away. Not melt, they erode away. That's the word I'm looking for. So what you're left with is like an actual composition of the harder rocks or metals that are, well, I don't know, whatever the word is for that. I hope Mrs. Overstreet isn't watching this. She's gonna tell me. I tried to explain to her what an isotope was yesterday, and she gave me an F. She said, "No, that is so wrong." So hopefully I explained this correctly. We'll see what she gives me. It's gonna give me a grade on that.
And I mean, in terms of permanent staying, you said Madrid, and since we're a Madrid-based podcast, what exactly about Madrid, or certain aspects that you really like, especially with your child capital, like, do you want to see him grow up in an environment like the one here in Madrid?
Yeah, so let's see. Things that are specific to
or Spain.
To Madrid and in Spain. I mean, of course the culture is like everybody loves babies here, so raising a baby here is great. I mean, you just, like, I feel like in the States, if I was walking around and I saw like a group of like young guys and I was walking with my kid, like I don't know. Like, well, when that happens here, they all go, "Oh, que guapo, hey, hola, hey," like, and you're like, what? You're like a bunch of like cool dudes, and you're like saying what's up to my baby, like that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that wouldn't happen in the States. They wouldn't be like, "Hey, your baby's cute." Like, I don't know. It's just really weird, and it's kind of nice that happens here. And of course, all the abuelos and abuelas who just like come up and like just like kiss your baby and like hug your baby, like it's great. We love it. A little weird during post-COVID stuff, but whatever. Who cares? We'll overlook that. And then, well, I mean, there's just something about Sarah. This might not be related to exactly Madrid in Spain or just international life in general, but Sarah and I have always had a very strong desire to like be abroad, to be multicultural, to be multilingual, to be part of an international community where there's just like a blend of cultures together and all that. So yeah, I mean, really, I just want we see for Kepler, we want him to grow up as cool as like, I don't know, the students here. The students here are amazing. Like they can speak 2 languages, 3 languages.